Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker. Thank you for joining me today. I have a little bit different of a video for you today. As you can probably tell, those are not my hands. Today I have a guest designer. This is my husband, who has never made a card before, but he asked me what I wanted for my birthday and I told him I really wanted him to make me a card, and I decided to film it. I was incredibly impressed with what he comes up with here. So he started out by sketching a design, and I was blown away by the design that he sketched because he sketched it really quickly. He sat down, he picked out some stamps, and then he took my sketchbook and he sketched a design and told me exactly what he wanted to do. And it was a really clever idea. To be completely transparent and honest, I did sit right next to him as he did all the designing, and I helped him work through these techniques which he's never done before. So he started with a piece of Bristol smooth paper, and then he took some washi tape and laid strips of that across the paper diagonally all the way down. He also has a couple of pieces of masking paper there, and that's just so that when he's working in one space with one color, it doesn't get into another space. So he's doing some ink blending here with some Distress Oxide inks. He picked out all of the colors. I gave him my swatch book so that he could pick those out. He said he wanted a rainbow of colors, and he chose some really bright primary colors. I thought it was really interesting to see the difference in styles here, because if I'm picking out a rainbow, I tend to lean more towards pastel shades or tropical shades. So this is a very different take on a rainbow than what I would normally do, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. It's still very pretty, and I love the way it turns out. So the colors that he chose to use for this rainbow are Festive Berries, Carved Pumpkin, Mustard Seed, Lucky Clover, Blueprint Sketch, and Wilted Violet. One thing you want to be careful with if you're doing this kind of technique is to keep an eye on your masking paper. If you're reusing the same piece of masking paper for all of the sections, you have to check the underside of the masking paper before you place it on a new section, because some of the color from the last section might be on the bottom of the masking paper. And if you place it on top of a new color, it's going to get on that color. Once he was done with the ink blending, he very carefully lifted up all of those pieces of washi tape, and while he was doing that, I told him to use that Post-it note to hold down the paper, and this just prevents him from getting any fingerprints on the panel while that Distress Oxide ink is still drying. Next, he used the Tiny Words stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, and he took a whole bunch of the sentiments from that set and he laid them across those white stripes that were created by that washi tape, and he put those in the Misti Tool to make it a lot easier to stamp them all at the same time. Once those were all laid out, he stamped them using Simon Says Stamp Fog ink, but actually after he stamped them, he thought it was a little bit too light and he wanted a darker gray ink, which I don't really have a lot of gray inks, so I ended up picking out a Distress Oxide ink for him, and that was Weathered Wood. So he stamped those again and just stamped right over the top of the Fog ink with the Weathered Wood Distress Oxide ink. Next, he took out the Birthday Numbers stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. He decided that since I made him a birthday card a few months ago and put his age on it, it was only fair if he put my age on this birthday card so that everybody could know how old I am. So yes, my birthday is tomorrow and I'm turning 31. He also has a happy birthday sentiment on there, which is from My Favorite Things Greetings Galore stamp set, and he's stamping both of those with Versamark ink onto some Bazzill Licorice Twist cardstock, which he's prepped with a powder tool, and then he's going to emboss them with Alabaster white embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. This was actually his first time ever embossing something, and as someone that embosses things on almost a daily basis, it's easy to forget that when you first start out with embossing, you have no idea what you're doing. So I thought I would slow this part down a little bit and go over it for any beginners. So first you want to go over your paper with an anti-static powder tool, and then you want to stamp your image using an embossing ink. Next, you want to sprinkle your embossing powder over your stamped images, and I like to use a coffee filter underneath so that I can catch all of the excess powder and easily put it back into my container. Once you're done adding your powder, you want to pick up that paper and let any excess powder fall into that coffee filter. And I find it really helpful to tap the back of the paper with your finger to get all of the extra little bits of powder. Next, you need a heat tool. I like to use the Wagner heat gun, and first you want to let it heat up for a little while before putting it on your paper. Once it's good and hot, you can move it to your paper. I like to start in one corner and work my way across the paper. And the way that you know that that powder is melting is it will kind of turn shiny. So as you see it turn shiny, keep moving that heat tool across the paper. And like with anything, if you're struggling with embossing, keep practicing because eventually you'll get it. Next, he took a couple of images from that same stamp set and he stamped them onto Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock using Gina K Designs Jet Black Amalgam ink. I helped him use my Scan and Cut too in order to cut out all of those images, including the embossed ones that are on that black paper. He used Copic markers in order to color in these balloons, and this is actually his very first time using Copic markers. So he used a very easy coloring method, just coloring in each of the balloons with one solid color. And because he's not very experienced with coloring and he's never used these markers before, he took this coloring very slow, and that's what I would recommend. This might look like he's coloring very fast, but that's just because I sped it up quite a bit. Alright, so next he took that background panel that he created earlier, and using my ATG gun, he adhered it onto an A2 size card base. Next he took those balloons that he colored in and he adhered them down using Gina K Designs Connect glue. He popped up both of the numbers on the card using some foam tape. He really wanted the 1 to look like the balloons were kind of lifting it up, so he placed it a little bit higher than the 3. I thought that that was a really fun touch to this design. He also used that foam tape in order to pop up the sentiment, and he placed that right underneath those numbers. At this point, I asked him what he wanted to use for his finishing touches. I told him he could use some sequins or some Wink of Stella, or he could take a colored pencil and color in those numbers. And he said he wanted the balloons to be puffy. So I gave him some glossy accents and he went over those balloons with the glossy accents. And that adds a bit of shine and dimension and makes them look a little bit more puffy. After that, this card is going to be all done, and I was so impressed with how well he did for his very first card design, and we had such a good time crafting together. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you really enjoyed this card design created by my awesome husband. All of the products that he used for this card can be found in the description down below. If you're new to my channel and you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that subscribe button and check out some of my other videos. I do new card videos every single week, and I'll be back with another one really soon. Again, thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a good day today.